Hello, my name is Joan Hofer, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm here today to share why I come to church. Not just church, but All Souls. When I retired from the Philadelphia area with my husband, Larry, we both knew that we would need to find a like-minded community. Larry found the Colorado Springs Free Thinkers online before we even moved here. And they are a lovely group of people, but they're not doers. To this day, I still tease them. You guys just talk. You don't do. But I needed to do some social justice work in my retirement. So it may come as no surprise to anyone here that when I asked around, I was led to All Souls. But All Souls at the end of 2019 wasn't this vibrant community that we have today. They were going through some really difficult times, and within months it was COVID, and the UUA shut all the Unitarian Universalist churches down, and we weren't allowed to meet in person. Then within 6 months of that, we lost our minister. I mean, she just moved on. She didn't die. Yeah. But I was lucky because of just my brief connection with All Souls. Then I was connected with the UUA, which is the association, the kind of the mothership of the Unitarian Universalists. And they had all these wonderful programs over COVID. Of course, all on Zoom. And so after my brain exploded after George Floyd was murdered, I learned my anti-racism training through them. And they also had an opportunity to learn about organizing. And it had been a long time since I had gotten involved with organizing. So they taught me that, and they also started a program for getting out the vote in 2020. So once COVID was over, I was like ready to get moving. So again, we were kind of a fledgling community at the time with all the loss of COVID and Nori, the minister. So the UUA started a program called Good Trouble Congregation, which was a Get Out the Vote program. And you had to reach so many different things, like so many phone calls and letters to voters and that kind of thing. So I thought, let me see if a shared project would help get people moving. And in my mind, it was kind of a test, I have to admit, to see, will All Souls perk up? And it was really amazing, and boy, did they ever. We made thousands of phone calls, thousands of letters, and among other things, to become a Good Trouble congregation. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like out of the woodwork, there was Sandra Collins, Dale Young, Carla, who needs no last name, and the social justice team was born. And I'm really excited to say that after 4 years, we are really strong. Let's see if I forgot anything. So things change, and boy, have they changed. And I've changed. So now I realize that between the social justice team, a settled minister, and all the relationships that I've developed over the years, that I get a lot more from All Souls than just my social justice fix. I realize that I come to church for the community as well, and for all of you, and the promise of what we can achieve together, whether that is through social justice work or simply offering a listening ear and a kind word. Thank you.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Taylor Hugh, and I am open to any and all pronouns. When Lynn asked me to speak about why I attend church, I thought I would make my answer just a little more specific and speak about why I also attend All Souls itself. I first heard about All Souls from my grandmother. She had found community and peace at her local UU church. After some digging, she had found All Souls and thought that it might be a good fit for me. I thought that it sounded like an okay place, but I didn't have a high motivation to attend. Thus, I shrugged it off until a later date. Religious trauma can do that to you. A trip back to Illinois and a visit to my grandparents' UU church changed my mind. I saw how community and earth-oriented the UU church could be, rather than being oriented towards religion and control. I decided then that I would give All Souls a shot. I can't live in isolation forever, I thought to myself. Within the first few sermons I witnessed, Reverend Ron's discussion of interdependence with each other and the earth opened my mind to the wisdom that All Souls has to offer. Soon after, rumors began to float around that All Souls had a choir. As a choir kid of 8+ years who was missing choir due to a break from college, this sounded like an epic opportunity, but at the time it felt like only rumors, so I brushed it off and went about my life without. One Tuesday night, I was on my way home from Manitou. I had just gotten off at the downtown bus terminal. That night, I was feeling particularly lonely and missing the choir community. The All Souls choir rumors flew into my mind. I quickly checked the website, and sure enough, there was practice soon. I've never run to a church faster than I did that night. It didn't matter who I was or what my experience was like. Kai, Laura, and the choir all welcomed me with open arms and plenty of laughter. It was then that my heart had opened to the compassion of All Souls. Quickly after came young adult group and deep conversations. I began reading poetry with new perspectives and awesome people. The soil communion and the rhythm circle showed me the power of community ritual. After church coffee and snacks are always a bonus as well. I was no longer feeling alone or stashed behind a curtain. I can now say that I understand what it means to belong and to be seen, heard, and understood. When I experience All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, I experience a place of community, of growth, compassion, and a home with very talented artists. We, as a congregation, are immensely beautiful, and we all have something worth teaching and learning. Lynn, you asked me why I attend church, and I answer with this. It is the heart, soul, and community-oriented action of All Souls UU that I fell in love with. Thank you all for witnessing my story.
Hi, I'm Abby. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been coming to services here for about 6 months. A few weeks ago, Lynn asked me if I'd be willing to speak about why I come here as part of the service today. Initially, I jokingly replied, I'm not really sure I know why, but I do know why. It's just a long story. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church and was forced to attend services 3 times a week. Without going into a ton of detail about it, I'll say that the phrase, "there's no hate like Christian love," pretty accurately summarizes the attitude of that church. I got out as fast as I could and never looked back. That church did real damage to me, and it has colored my view of all churches ever since, even though I know that's not entirely fair. For much of my adult life, I've wished I could have a church community without, the church part of that. But it seemed like those things went hand in hand, and finding a large group that also represented my values just seemed impossible. I've also long wished that the idea of faith in a higher power came easier to me, because my feelings about the idea of God are complicated. It's not that I don't believe, but it's also not that I do believe. I don't have strong feelings either way, not even strong enough to consider myself agnostic. Even referring to the universe or source feels inauthentic to me. The philosopher and psychologist William James talks about the more, an unseen, higher reality or subconscious extension of the self, a spiritual power that brings peace, strength, or enlightenment. This resonates for me. And I know that there are many times when I connect to that. Laughing with my kids, certain music or poetry, time in nature, during psychedelic medicine experiences, and often I find this while practicing yoga. Most commonly, though, I find that feeling at work. I am a mental health therapist, and sometimes there are these moments with clients when I find myself completely in the flow, and I'm just witnessing healing in real time. There is a divine holiness to that I've found in few other places. That feels like the more to me. This past summer, my family took a road trip to Northern California to see the Redwood National Forest. If you've been, you'll understand what I mean when I talk about the feeling of being immersed in those otherworldly giant spirits. Those trees are the closest thing to any sort of God, to the more, that I have ever felt. Majestic, primordial, mystical, enchanted, and sacred. My husband described it as soul-shattering in the best possible way. After we left the Redwoods, I knew I wanted to find something that could connect me back to that feeling more often. On our drive home from California, I Googled pagan churches in Colorado Springs. I'm not pagan, but that was the closest I could come to in describing what I was looking for. All Souls came up in that search, and so I checked out the website. I saw that Lynn was a member. I've known and respected Lynn for many years, ever since my daughter went to her preschool. If Lynn was a member, I figured it had to be good. Somewhere on the website, I found the message that Reverend Ron had given the Sunday after the election in November 2024. I had desperately needed that message back then. This was enough to convince me to come in person. I've resonated with the message and the values lived here ever since. I had so much trepidation in the beginning. There are certain things I will not expose my kids to, and the toxic church of my youth is at the top of that list. But as I've settled in here, I see that what this church represents is everything I want my kids to become. When a youth group for them was first mentioned, my initial thought was absolutely not. But then I met Ben, and he was wearing a shirt that said, "Sounds gay and nerdy, I'm in." And I reconsidered my stance. I love that this church is not just accepting of all people, but that it genuinely embraces and celebrates all people as whole and worthy. I love the social justice focus. I love that each week I feel like I'm not alone in aching for this broken world, and that I leave feeling like there is still some hope in healing this broken world. I truly leave each service wishing I could listen to Reverend Ron or whoever is speaking that day longer, because I am getting a soul nourishment that I think I've been hungry to receive for a very long time. I still feel hesitation. I attended the Getting to Know UU class, but did not join as a member. Something in me got really scared of that, some holdover from old church experiences, I'm sure. I still can't really believe that I'm attending church, and so many people in my life are understandably incredulous. "You're going to church?" they ask, genuinely shocked. "Yes," I say, "but it's not like church. It's like a weird hippie church." How do I explain this place to people who don't know? Because I know what they're thinking, and just a few months ago, I would have thought the same. I come here because the message resonates with my mind and heart and soul. I come here because the inherent worth and dignity of all people is truly honored. I come here because I see the isms being challenged here. I come here because Reverend Ron pulls a tarot card before he writes his sermons, and he says the river has personhood, and because he challenges me to use my privilege in this world to fight for equality for all. I come here because I am craving more ceremony in my life, and I think singing together with other humans is good for the spirit. I come here because it feels healing, and I believe the healing of one is the healing of all. I come here because I want to grow in that connection to the more, or to the God of my understanding, as my yoga teacher calls it. It seems like some serendipitous stroke of magic that I found a place where all of my random thoughts on this subject seem to fit and align. My little introvert family hasn't been overly involved or social yet. It takes us a while to warm up, and we are all perpetually bad at small talk. But I do plan to slowly get more involved here and hope to grow more in this community. For now, I am so grateful to be here, and I am looking forward to finding more connection outside of just Sunday services. I wish I'd known about All Souls years ago, but I'm so glad to be here now.
You know, if you have, just feel free to check out, and we'll sing a song, and then it'll be Lynn's turn. So yeah, if you haven't heard this story before, though, I came to All Souls in well, I don't know, I didn't write the date down, but we came when we were looking for All Souls. You know, the first time we came in person, All Souls, Reverend Ron spoke about community, and that was the moment that I knew I was in the right place. You know, we had been longing for a community. We had started looking maybe around 2020, and we had always been sitting around with our friends in 2021 and talking about all these values we had and all these ideas and, you know, what I thought was the right thing, which I know is the right thing. I'm kidding. We talked about these values, but we never practiced these values. So much like Abby, I went to Google and I looked up, where does an atheist go to church? And expecting to get no results, or maybe the Satanic Temple, I found maybe look into Unitarian Universalism. And like many of you, I have a deep history in the Christian church, and so I was very nervous, because from the outside, this appears very Christian. But when we came here and we listened to Ron talk about community, that's when I started to believe in what this church is about. You know, what brought us here started as a Google search, but what kept us here are the people that we met. You know, the friends and families that we've become very close with, the community here at All Souls. The ability at All Souls to actually live our values is also what keeps us coming back. Here, our values don't stay abstract or theoretical. They show up in how we care for one another, how we show up and how we act together. All Souls gave us the place not to just believe, but a community where belief turns into belonging and values turned into a lived experience. Thank you.
I love that song, and it completely reminds me of the joke of why are Unitarian Universalists not very good singers? Because they're too busy reading ahead to see if they agree with the words. It's hard to say, Lord, it's hard to say there's a better home waiting in the sky. I don't buy that. And that's why I come to church. I'm done. Thank you, Taylor and Joan and Abby and Ben, for sharing today. As I was contemplating the theme for today's service, which I have been on the team calendar for months, I had several ideas. A philosophical look at the precept of Bill Murray's Groundhog Day. The poetry of Langston Hughes on his birthday. The pagan festival of Imbolc. a celebration of the full moon. Lots to work with. There's another reason I come to this church. But bringing different voices from the congregation to the congregation is something I've wanted to do for a while. And damn, I did a good job. That was impressive, man. Thank you so much for sharing. I knew I had good guts, good instincts. People who know me fairly well in my professional and personal life sometimes ask me why I go to church, given my identity as a political liberal, secular humanist / atheist. You go to church? Why? Well, as I look back on the 2+ decades of services I've attended here, one answer that comes to mind is to connect with other people who are willing to share their stories and their thoughts and feelings about those stories to help me through my own journey in this world without the certainty of a higher power and an afterlife. I love how it all flows together with absolutely no coordination. We started coming when, most of you have heard this story too. We started coming when I was pregnant with my 27-year-old, almost 27-year-old. I guess I was looking for a community of people with whom I felt safe to raise my children and give them a more formal framework for the values I held. Over the years, I found a variety of things that appealed to me. The intellectual stimulation of ideas presented and examined by religious professionals and lay people alike. The exploration of a variety of spiritual traditions that I had never considered growing up in a relatively liberal Episcopal church. Buddhism, Native American spirituality, paganism. Before I was 30, that was all some woo-woo stuff that I probably, definitely, rolled my eyes at. Exposure to political, social, and cultural realities that were below, or actually maybe they were above my radar. We took our toddler and infant to the protest at Palmer Park in 2001 when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan to hear Reverend Ellen speak. And I called that toddler in college almost 20 years later from my car after I had experienced a heart-pumping encounter downtown on Pikes Peak Avenue while protesting George Floyd's murder. I don't think I'd have attended those events without the influence of my church. All Souls and Unitarian Universalism have made me who I am. And since I want to continue my personal development to become whatever and whoever might be in here, I plan on coming to church for a long time to come.